He thought no one was watching. He was wrong. A folding table. A paper plate piled with smoked brisket. The smell of hickory smoke drifting across a practice field in St. Joseph, Missouri. And then, for just a second, as he reached for a bottle of water, his left hand caught the sunlight. A flash of gold. A ring nobody had confirmed seeing up close until this exact moment. Within minutes, phones were up. Within hours, it was everywhere. This is the story of how one quiet gesture at a summer barbecue turned into the moment the whole world had been waiting for. Let's rewind. Because to understand why one glint of metal on one finger could stop an entire fanbase in its tracks, you have to understand what came before it. You have to understand 2 years of watching. 2 years of guessing. 2 years of a story that millions of people felt like they were living alongside two people they had never actually met. It started in the stands. Not in a movie, not in a fairy tale, but in a football stadium in Kansas City, back in the summer of 2023. A pop star showed up to watch a tight end play a game. Nobody thought much of it at first. Then she kept showing up. Then the friendship bracelets appeared in the crowd. Then the whole sport seemed to shift its center of gravity, just slightly, toward a suite where a woman in a red jacket cheered louder than anyone else in the building. For 2 years, the world watched this relationship unfold in public, one game at a time. Every touchdown celebration was read like a tea leaf. Every glance toward the box was replayed in slow motion. Every outfit she wore to a game became a headline. It was a strange kind of intimacy, millions of strangers feeling invested in two people's private lives, simply because those two people happened to fall for each other in front of television cameras. And then, in August of 2025, it happened. He got down on one knee, not on a stage, not at an award show, but in his own backyard. A garden. Flowers everywhere. And a ring that had clearly taken months of secret planning. It wasn't just a diamond. It was a statement. An old mine brilliant cut stone, set in yellow gold, flanked by 2 smaller gems, designed with a jeweler he'd trusted to keep the secret of a lifetime. When the photos came out, the internet did not just talk about it. It analyzed it. Carat estimates. Price tags. Comparisons to other celebrity rings. For a few days, an engagement ring became the most discussed piece of jewelry on the planet. But here's the thing about a story like this. The proposal isn't the ending. It's the middle. And the middle is where the tension really builds. Because once the ring goes on, a new question takes over every headline, every group chat, every comment section. When is the wedding? Rumors did what rumors do. They multiplied. Some said a summer wedding. Some pointed to a date that echoed one of her most famous songs, a date practically begging to be picked apart by fans who had spent years decoding hidden meanings in her lyrics. Insiders leaked hints. Reporters chased down team schedules, cross-referencing training camp start dates like detectives building a case. The Kansas City Chiefs had a mandatory minicamp scheduled for early June. Training camp historically opened in late July. That left a window. A narrow, tantalizing window where 2 of the most famous people on Earth could disappear from public view just long enough to get married in peace. And then, in March of 2026, before any wedding rumor had been confirmed, something else happened that mattered just as much to this story. He had to make a decision. Retire, and step fully into a new chapter of life with a Grammy-winning wife and a quieter future. Or come back for one more run, one more season chasing the game he had spent his entire adult life falling in love with. Fans held their breath. Would the wedding mean the end of his career too? Would love and football finally have to compete for the same calendar? The answer came on a podcast, his own podcast, the one he hosts and where he says whatever is actually on his mind. He was coming back. Year 14. One more season in a Chiefs uniform. He talked about still loving the game, about how the woman he was about to marry shared that same fire, that same refusal to walk away from the thing that made her who she was. It wasn't a farewell tour announcement. It was a declaration that love and ambition didn't have to cancel each other out. He could have both. So now the pieces were in place. A wedding was coming. A season was coming. And somewhere between those 2 enormous events sat one impossibly ordinary tradition, one that fans barely thought about, but that was about to become the accidental stage for the biggest reveal of the entire summer. Every year, for nearly 4 decades, a Kansas City barbecue institution has done the same thing. They load up trucks with hundreds of pounds of hickory smoked meat, gallons of sides, enough food to feed 200 players, coaches, and staff, and they haul it all out to training camp. It's not glamorous. It's not televised in prime time. It's just tradition, smoke curling into a Missouri summer sky, exhausted players lining up with paper plates after 2-a-day practices in 90-degree heat. For 38 years, this ritual has quietly fueled a football team nobody was paying close attention to. This year was different. This year, everybody was paying attention. Because on July 3rd, at Madison Square Garden, in front of roughly 1,000 guests, the wedding actually happened. Not leaked. Not confirmed until after the fact. The two of them managed to pull off one of the most anticipated celebrity weddings in recent memory with a level of secrecy that stunned even seasoned entertainment reporters. Guests included musicians, actors, teammates, family. People who were there called it unforgettable. One broadcaster who attended described it as the most spectacular evening of his career. And through it all, the happy couple kept one thing hidden from the cameras entirely: their rings. For nearly a week after the wedding, nobody outside that inner circle had seen either wedding band. No paparazzi shot. No official photo release. Just a newlywed couple who disappeared to Montana for a honeymoon, keeping the most obvious piece of evidence of their marriage completely out of frame. Then, on July 10th, they resurfaced. Not for themselves, but for someone else's big day. A former teammate was getting married in Southern California, and instead of extending their honeymoon, the couple flew back to be there for him. It was a small, human detail that said a lot. Even in the middle of their own fairy tale, loyalty to the people who mattered came first. And it was there, at somebody else's wedding, surrounded by other people's joy, that the world finally got its first real look. Photographers caught it. A glimpse of gold on his hand. A glimpse of something enormous and unmistakable on hers. The rings were real. The rings were finally visible. Her ring, when the high-resolution photos came through, silenced any doubt about the scale of it. A massive stone catching every bit of California sunlight, so striking that people joked the newlyweds had nearly upstaged the actual bride and groom at the wedding they were attending. His ring was simpler, a thick gold band, but paired with hers, the two pieces told the same story. This wasn't just a celebrity marriage. This was two people who had thought carefully about every detail, right down to how their jewelry would sit side by side. But even after that moment in California, something still felt unfinished. Because that appearance was in a world of red carpets and curated angles, of professional photographers and known camera positions, of two people who understood exactly how visible they were and to some degree, controlled it. What fans were really waiting for was something raw. Something unscripted. A moment where the ring wasn't the point of the photo, just a detail caught by accident, in a place where football, not fame, was supposed to be the whole story. That moment came in Florida, before he'd even reported to full-team training camp. Photos surfaced of him walking into a private training facility, dressed down in camouflage shorts and a plain t-shirt, duffel bag over his shoulder, clearly just trying to get his body ready for a 14th NFL season. And there it was. For the first time, clear as day, in a completely unposed, unglamorous setting. The wedding band. Not hidden. In to lift weights and run routes like it was any other Tuesday. It might sound like a small thing, but to a fan base that had spent 2 years dissecting every visible clue, this was the moment the fairy tale and real life fully merged. He wasn't performing marriage for the cameras anymore. He was just living it. Then came training camp itself, and with it, that 38-year-old barbecue tradition, rolling into St. Joseph exactly on schedule, exactly like it had for nearly 4 decades. Except this time, when the smoke rose and the players lined up between sweaty practice sessions, one of them had a wedding band on, and a fan base that had turned into amateur wedding detectives over the past 2 years was not about to let a single detail slide. Picture it. A late July afternoon, dust kicked up from a practice field, players still catching their breath from 2-a-day drills in brutal Midwest heat. Long folding tables loaded with barbecue trays, the exact same tables that had fed rookies and legends alike for generations. And somewhere in that line, a newlywed tight end, fresh off the most talked about wedding of the year, doing the most normal thing in the world. Getting in line for lunch. Fans lining the practice field ropes weren't just there for football that day. They were there hoping for exactly this. A glimpse of the man behind the headline. And when he knelt on the sideline between reps, when he reached for a plate, When his hand caught the light just right, it happened. The ring. Visible. Undeniable. Not staged for a magazine cover, not angled for a red carpet photographer, just a guy at a barbecue with his teammates, wearing proof of the biggest decision of his life on his hand, like it was the most natural thing in the world. Word spread the way it always does now. Not through a press release. Through a phone in someone's pocket, a photo posted online, a caption with too many exclamation points. Within hours, sports outlets and entertainment outlets alike were running the same story from different angles. One newlywed. One barbecue tradition nearly 4 decades old. One accidental flash of gold that somehow felt more meaningful than any of the posed, professional photos that came before it. And maybe that's the real reason this moment landed so hard. Because everything up to this point, the proposal, the wedding, the red carpet reveal at his teammate's ceremony, had all been, in some way, presented to the public. Curated. Announced. Photographed by professionals. But this was different. This was 200 sweaty football players eating barbecue at training camp, the same ritual that had played out every summer for longer than either of them had been alive, and in the middle of it, a piece of jewelry that represented the biggest promise a person can make to another person, just quietly existing in an ordinary moment. There's something almost poetic about it, if you step back and think about it. A love story that began in a football stadium, watched by millions of strangers who felt like they knew every beat of it, didn't end with a grand, choreographed reveal. It ended, or rather continued, in the most unglamorous setting imaginable. Hickory smoke. Paper plates. A practice field in a small Missouri town most people couldn't find on a map before this summer. That's where the ring finally, truly, belonged to real life instead of headlines. Because here's what people forget when they follow a story like this from the outside. Underneath the diamonds and the wedding venues and the carefully managed photo opportunities, this was still just two people building an actual life together. A life that includes, apparently, barbecue trucks and folding tables and 14th seasons in a league that doesn't wait for anyone, no matter how famous they are. He didn't retire into a quiet life away from the cameras. He walked straight back into training camp, ring and all, choosing to chase one more championship while starting a marriage at the exact same time. And for the fans who had spent 2 summers, 3 off-seasons, and 1 entire engagement watching from a distance, that barbecue field moment gave them something the wedding itself never could. Not the fantasy version of the relationship, dressed in designer gowns and photographed by professionals. The real version. The unscripted, unglamorous, entirely human version, playing out in front of a few hundred fans lucky enough to be standing at the ropes on the right afternoon, at the right barbecue, at exactly the right angle to catch the light. By the time camp wrapped for the day, the story had already traveled far beyond that practice field. It didn't need a press conference. It didn't need an official statement. A single, unplanned second, a hand reaching for a plate of brisket, had done more to confirm what everyone already suspected than any carefully worded announcement ever could. Somewhere between the proposal in a backyard, the ceremony at Madison Square Garden, the red carpet reveal at a teammate's wedding, and this, a folding table at training camp, the story had come full circle. It started with millions of strangers watching two people fall in love from a distance. And it landed, fittingly, with those same strangers catching one more glimpse, uninvited and unscripted, of exactly how far that love had come. The ring wasn't hidden that day. It never really needed to be. Some moments don't ask for a stage. They just happen, in the middle of an ordinary afternoon, smelling like hickory smoke, surrounded by the people who showed up to watch football and walked away with something else entirely. A quiet, accidental, unforgettable piece of a much bigger story, still being written, 1 season, 1 summer, 1 barbecue at a time.